decided on, almost overnight, one could say, that you can read about them. We've written several studies of the Ontario story. OECD was mentioned about PISA. OECD has liked Ontario because it's not only a success, it's describable. We did it deliberately. We did it on purpose. And so it's a good example of successful change in that. And we can discuss these informally, but this was our initial strategy to get action right away. We didn't, for example, as some people have done, when we started in 2003, October, we didn't have a task force to say, okay, what should be our vision? We knew what our vision should be, because we knew the field. We predicted they would like it if we imposed it, is one way of putting it, because it focused on literacy and numeracy. And this is for the overall growth. These are the growth until recently. This involves taking our measures of actually 6 measures at the elementary level, grade 3 and grade 6, reading, writing, and math. So 6 measures, and averaging the measures. And you'll see what, when we started in 2003, very small percentage. This is 100, this is the total sample. And we went up deliberately, as measured by the EQAO, which is the equivalent of PISA, except stronger standards actually than PISA. And you will know if you're from Ontario that math has been less successful, but literacy, and including reading and writing, are very strong, going up. And it's no accident that goes up, because you build on the base of capacity to be able to do this. So that's one version of it. It's pretty flatlined in the last 3 years, which is another story we can talk about if you're very interested in Ontario. This is grade 6 writing, and I want to show you what we always disaggregate the results and the strategy for all the subgroups. So this is the average going up. This is for all. We take a look at girls doing better than the average, better than boys on writing. You can see that better than boys, but the gap is being closed as you get to the latter years. If we take special education, very interesting, because the first 3 or 4 years we didn't pay much attention to it, flat line, and then we started to, and then when you focus on it and you build capacity, you get results. So that is, and then English as a second language, massive number, and I think we can almost say in those days that we closed the gap. If you came to Ontario, English as a second language, within 5 years you could catch up. So there was no, because we did it deliberately, we had special strategies to incorporate this. And finally, at the beginning here, I'll say something about the high school. 900 schools, remember? And the graduation rate, which is the green part, from literally it's gone from 68% to 88% steadily for the 900 schools in the province. So that's when we learned how to do system change. So when we go then to, this is just another version, this is quantitative, I'm not going to dwell on this. Huge numbers of additional people that graduated that were not graduating before. We did this, including a lot of focused new programs. When there was a change of election in 2015-16, when Kathleen Wynne became premier, same party, same political party, different premier. Equity and well-being were introduced more explicitly. So we had literacy, numeracy, high school graduation. Now we have equity. I noticed in one of the other speeches there's a focus on public and private morality. This is about morality and our own version of it. So this is very important because we're carrying this over now. I want to say something. Maybe I should say it now, given the time that we have left here. The shift, we work in a lot of countries around the world, a lot of OECD countries. We work in Latin America as well. And I think it's fair to say, accurate to say, that there was a growing preoccupation, largely because of PISA as well as people's goals. PISA started in early 2000s, so there's about 7 iterations every 3 years now. The results will come out in December for this last year. PISA put literacy and numeracy on the map. People started to pay attention to it, who's doing well in the world, and increasingly people in Ontario took that on. You see how well they did for that period. More and more people did, and then people started to get more interested in the top performers. The top 5 or 6 performers are typically, and not in order I'm doing it now, but Korea, Finland, Singapore, Hong Kong and China and Shanghai are sometimes separated. Ontario is one of the top performers, and so is British Columbia. Canada is quite strong on both equity and achievement, the combination. So I want to say it bluntly right now to make the point, because we don't have much time, is that literacy and the preoccupation with literacy and numeracy has become dysfunctional for societal development. The preoccupation, the obsession with literacy and numeracy, because it has meant absolute obsession with, if you want to do well in literacy and numeracy, you go to school all day, then you go to after-school cram schools, and you spend Saturday and Sundays, and you get incredible focus on it, and you do well on the assessments, but you don't do well in life necessarily. Stress, anxiety, suicides, but certainly stress in society. Stress has increased across all levels. There's also a massive, the two worst things that are happening to society right now are climate change for the worst and inequity for the worst. The gap between those that are doing well and wealth as well as education. Those are incredible, I'm going to say, time bombs for undercutting societal cohesion, trust, a lot of other things. We have shifted 5 years ago to beyond literacy and numeracy. Still includes it, but now we've shifted to what we call deep learning, and we'll come back to those goals. And also the systems that we work with, California, for example, and several of the other states, some of the ones that we work with in our deep learning, they have shifted in the last 3 years. This is very recent, where the governor and the state superintendent will say in several states now that literacy and the preoccupation with literacy and numeracy, standardized tests, punitive accountability, has been the wrong strategy. I call it the wrong policy driver. And now we must broaden that agenda to include socioeconomic learning, social and emotional, I should say, SEL learning, but what we call the global competencies that I'll turn to soon. So I just want you to think about how literacy and numeracy has become dysfunctional for individuals and for society. We won't have time for debate today, but you can find me. So that's where Ontario got shifted focus. I don't think we've gone far enough yet, but that was the state. And then it shifted again when the election in June of 2018, if those of you from Ontario will know, a populist conservative government came in, and there was, it's easy to explain the current education policy of the government since 2018. It's very easy to explain it or to know it. And what it is a series of budget cuts. That's the whole strategy. There is no content policy in this current government. And so this has been, and it's not only the budget cuts. You'll know that the Ontario government, on several of those cuts, has had to reverse their cuts because they were so unpopular. So it's like an elastic. They go down this path of budget cuts and then they come back this way. I'm criticizing, obviously, but more I'm describing it. The good news is we built capacity so strongly in the 5,000 schools in the 72 districts that level, what we call the middle, across the districts and across the schools, is strong enough mostly to withstand the cuts and still do good things. So because there's literally a policy vacuum in the content sense, people still have leeway to do this. So that's where we go. And then when we turn to the global work, these are some of the themes that we have been following and developing. It was in our earlier work, but we made it more explicit starting 2016. In particular, coherence, professional capital of teachers, and deep learning involving students and others. So I want to tie into this. In 2015 to 2016, we wrote a book capturing our previous work with one of my senior leaders, Joanne Quinn. It's called Coherence. And coherence is focusing on 4 things. Focusing direction is what we call moral purpose. When you hear later about morality, individual and collective, that's what we're talking about there. The focus on what is the purpose of education, how do you raise the bar, close the gap for all students. We do this through collaborative cultures. There's lots of evidence on that. The main important thing to say about collaboration is that collaboration is not automatically good. You can collaborate to do nothing. You can collaborate to do the wrong thing, right? So we have been careful about collaboration. You'll see me talk about autonomy in a moment. So these four things, I don't have time to explain them in detail. You can see the book, you can see our workshops on how we do this. And so when you come to coherence, a very important distinction we made early was between coherence and alignment. Alignment is the rational part. You say, here are our goals, here are our strategies, this is how we're going to monitor, this is how we'll intervene, and you can describe it rationally. But we said that doesn't really work for day-to-day teachers and principals. They don't experience as a rational phenomenon. They experience as a subjective phenomenon. And it's much better to think of coherence as subjective. And the way to, I think to say it is this. Alignment is rational, coherence is emotional. You probably know about change, all change. The change that sticks with people is when they've had an emotional connection to it, for bad or for good. And what we do is give people an emotional connection with implementing the work. And our definition, I don't have it on the slide, but our definition of coherence is the shared depth of understanding about the nature of the work. I'm talking about if you're in a school with 40 teachers, I mean the collective 40 teachers and the principal and the leaders. If it's a good school, we'll have a shared depth of understanding about the nature of the work because they get it through specific interaction. We have a lot of videos on this. This is highly specific work. Somebody referred to my quote about fast, and so just a couple of things here. I collect what I call sticky phrases. A sticky phrase is a phrase that is an insight and it stays with you. So half of my sticky phrase was mentioned by Tony, I think, which is the full statement of it is go slow to go fast. If you want to go fast, establish some relationships, do a few things for the first 6 months, so to speak, and then accelerate, because people are now with you more and more. Another one we have is strive for precision, but avoid prescription. Don't prescribe what people should do because they rebel or they don't do it, they're not committed to it. But you have to get to specificity. And so specificity is precision. So our best work now is we're highly specific about complex things. But people don't mind it because we don't impose it. In fact, they like it because it works. It sticks with them. It's an emotional connection. So this is, we get at the insights about change because we're so close to practitioners doing this work. This is, I did a book with Andy, it's a very important one we think, where we said you better get these 3 things organized. Human capital, let's think about teachers only or educational leaders at the same time. Human capital is the quality of the individual. Social capital is the quality of the group. And decisional capital is the quality of the evidence. And when these 3 things are going together, you really get into, you get major change.